My name is Thulani Ngwenya. I work for Eskom as a specialist, chief advisor, contractor safety. I've got a BTech degree in environmental health from Technical in Pretoria, and I've got also a couple of certificates in terms of environmental management as well. And yeah, I've been with Eskom for 3 years now. So as actually I started being a manager in operational and process safety within Eskom. So working rights was one of the portfolio that actually I was managing during that time. So currently what I do is I advise Eskom in terms of any policies and processes with regards to contractor safety. The key topics that actually we were covering today was mainly the introduction in working rights, the fall protection plan, trying to sort of like to unpack how do we develop a fall protection plan as an organization, and risk assessment, because risk assessment is one of the key principle or key discipline that is required within the safety environment. And we also looked in terms of the training and authorization, because we know that within working rights, as we know that working rights in the construction sector is one of the risk activities. So we really needed to sort of like engage more in terms of training and authorization, whether we have got competent people or not. We also covered the issues of medical fitness, because oftentimes we've got challenges with employees who are not declaring their medical status. So we wanted to sort of like engage more and raise issues of awareness in terms of what is it that we can do in order to prevent people who are actually epileptics involved in a working in a tight environment. And we also looked in terms of the health and safety equipment, or the working rights equipment that needs to be used during that particular processes. So basically those were the topics that actually we looked into it. And obviously there were key activities that we've done. We tried to develop a fall protection plan as a group, sort of like it was an assignment of some sort to say, let us actually try and develop a fall protection plan, which they were given. We divided into 4 groups, and each group were given a certain project to come up with a fall protection plan, and also to come up with a baseline risk assessment in line with that particular project. So basically that's what we've done today. The framework itself consists of the type of, systems that need to be used when you are involved in that particular industry. It also involves the type of, legislations that are more integrated in ensuring that both particular systems are probably integrated and are managed in a way that it will obviously prevent hazardous or a risk environment. Not exactly, but what it just says, it says an employer must provide a safe working environment. Now, there are hierarchy of control that you need to follow as an employer in ensuring that you comply to that particular section, which is Section 8. So it is not stipulated in terms of what is it that you need to do in a sequential form. So it depends on the type of activities that you, as an employer, you are involved in or you are engaging in. So those are the things that you need to do. But you cannot have a sort of like a legal framework which stipulates or tells you exactly this is what you need to do. It just says you need to provide a safe working environment. So it's an obligation as an employer. You've got an obligation as an employer to ensure that you provide a safe working environment. Then it does not stipulate what is it that you need to do. So it's upon you as an organization to ensure that you bring or you develop certain guidelines, procedures, as well as policies to ensure that you agree or you comply with that particular station. Working rights is defined as an activity that operates or that happens above the ground level. For example, if one is constructing a two-story building, you will then use your scaffoldings. So as soon as you are actually working on top of the scaffolding, we regard this as working rights, because you are not basically working on the ground level. You are already elevated, you are working at an elevated position. So anything can happen there. So you might fall from heights, which would result you to fatalities or to any injuries taking place. So as long as you are not working in a stable condition or stable environment, therefore you are working rights immediately once you are above the ground level. There are 3 days courses that normally service providers are offering, which are accredited. It would be unfair for me to mention the service providers, because it looks like it will seem as if I'm marketing on their behalf. But there are few courses or few service providers that are offering working at heights short courses, and who actually are accredited. And those service providers are also accredited to declare you competent. And once you are declared competent, you will then need to register with few institution of working heights, where you get your what you call your registration number, and they then declare you competent to become a person who can actually design, who can develop your fall protection plans, and who can actually approve your fall protection plan and so forth. Yeah. You've got quite a number of steps and procedures. One, you need to be competent as a safety officer. You need to be trained. You've got quite a number of qualifications that you need to have. One, you need to have your safety management training. Some it's environmental health, some is going to, safety engineering or occupational health and safety. And then from there, you need to be registered. If you are within the construction sector, you need to be registered, fortunately, with the SACP, CMP, as a safety officer or manager or agent. And therefore, you then need to also to be registered with other institutions that we have currently, whom before SACP came on board, some of the safety officers were registering there. So once you are registered and once you are declared competent in terms of qualifications, you can therefore act as a safety officer on site. And there are certain expectations from you as a safety officer to ensure that there are safety files on sites and people are adhering to all the relevant legislations that are applicable in that particular space. So those are few expectations from a safety officer. One of the things is, as a safety officer, your duty is to ensure that the working environment is safe, number one. It's for you to protect the employees as well as the employer. Because when you look in terms of Section 8 of the OSH Act, it says duties of employer towards employees. So it is therefore your duty as a safety officer that the employer provide a safe working environment for the employees. But at the same time, when you look in terms of Section 14 of the Act, it says duties of employees. So now, as employees, you need to ensure that you adhere to all the rules and policies that the employer is giving. Now, being a safety officer is to ensure that both parties are in a safe working environment, or the other part adhere to all the policies, the other part ensure that they provide a safe working environment. If not, what you need to do as a safety officer, you need to conscientize the employee as well as the employer about the current situation and try and find a way, an amicable solution to deal with this particular problem. Because should anything happen and you are there as a safety officer, let's say something goes wrong, you are there as a safety officer, it becomes a problem because it means that you don't actually do your work with due diligence. Now, as a safety officer, you need to ensure that you conduct risk assessment on site. You ensure that you induct people about the hazards involved. You ensure that you give training where necessary. You ensure that you provide your PPE, which is your personal protective equipment, as well as report or inform the employer about certain challenges or certain conditions that are there which are above your responsibility or your knowledge. There's certain processes that you need to follow. What before, one of the initial point is that you do hazard identification. Once you do hazard identifications, is that now that's where the risk assessment starts. So you will then rate those, or you will then, out of these hazards, you will then check what are the risks involved in these hazards, or that can emanate from these particular hazards. And then in terms of that, you will then rate the risk according to a sort of like a matrix that perhaps you would have developed. And then from there, you will then categorize them accordingly, checking as the consequences and the probability of each and every risk. And then in that case, it will be able to assist you to say, for me, this is now our number one risk that we need to start bringing or controlling this particular risk. And this is how we're going to control this particular risk, so that should anything happen, we know that this is how we're going to control this, or this is how we're going to deal with this. So there's certain processes that is involved, and there is no formal or one solution in terms of dealing with risk assessment. Different organizations, they do their own different kind of risk assessment. They've got different risk metrics and they've got different risk assessment template. As long as at the end of the day, it's trying to address the risk that is involved. When we talk about standard compliance that is required on site, we've got quite a number of standard compliance that we need to adhere to. Eventually, the main aim of the Act is to ensure that we minimize risk as much as possible, if not eliminating completely. So now, you are therefore expected to ensure that whatever compliance that you are busy with, you ensure that you provide, you document, you've got your risk assessment, you've got your own procedures, you've got your guidelines, you've got all policies in place. All of those things are trying to address the issues of compliance. And one of the key elements is that when the legislation says it is the duty of the employer to provide a safe working environment. In other words, when you do compliance, it is expected of each and every employer organization to ensure that they provide a safe working environment. And by doing so, it's up to you whether you have procedures in place that can able to assist you, or you've got systems in place that can able to assist you. Now, different organizations have got different systems, they've got different procedures, they've got different standards that enable them to deal with issues of compliance. In reality, it is an ideal for any employer or any organization to eliminate the risk completely. But in practice, it is not possible. It is not practical. That's why we are striving to ensure that we find or we eliminate whatever challenges or risks that are involved. Hence, we've got a number of systems in place. We've got procedures, we've got guidelines, we've got policies, we've got standards and so forth. All of those things are trying to assist in eliminating the risk. We must not forget that the principle of attitude, behavior, as well as culture also contributes towards not achieving the elimination of complete risk. Because when a human being is involved, you rest assured that you need to deal with these three things, which is behavior, attitude, and culture. Now, as much as we will want to have an environment that is free from risk, the legislation does not necessarily say you must shy away the fact that you cannot eliminate risk completely, and then you then say there is nothing that I can do. Hence, it says you must try and provide a safe working environment. Now, you need to prove that you have provided a safe working environment. And now it depends what is a safe working environment. One of the way of providing a safe working environment is to have all these documents and manage them accordingly. Secondly, train your employees so that they can able to see that really the employer is actually focusing on safety as their number one priority. Number two, you need to have systems in place. At some point, you need to check what is it that the employees want or prefer the most in ensuring that you convey that message. Whatever that they want the most, it becomes your vehicle in giving them more information about safety. And by so doing, you are actually proving that you have tried to provide a safe working environment. And as much as there are a number of issues or things that you can do, you can conduct campaigns, you can conduct workshops, you can conduct anything that you can think of in trying to achieve the compliance, or in trying to ensure that you are providing a safe working environment. So there are a lot of initiatives that you can think of, but you need to prove beyond reasonable doubt that you have actually tried to do something by providing that. You need to keep records of any safety-related issues. And the time frame by that time is you can keep around about up until a period of 30 to 40 years of those particular records. Because you must remember that part of occupational injuries or diseases, they fall within safety as well. As much as they are health-related issues, but some of them, they fall within safety. Now, you need to keep records of that information so that when you start trying to deal with these particular aspects or trying to come up with initiatives, this particular information that you've archived, it will able to guide you. What is it that you need to do? So there is no standard thing to say you need to archive a checklist, you need to archive a procedure. What I can say is that you need to archive any related document that it can able to assist you to move forward in relation to safety matters.
Can you give me an example?
Like for example, you can actually archive a procedure, for example, to say we have a procedure, working rights procedure, and then you archive that so that should it happen that when you are not around or when you've moved on to another organization, somebody who comes after you, they not need to go and start developing another procedure. They can actually look into the one that was in progress or existing and try and actually bring certain things or upgrade where you have left. So those kind of documents, those are the ones that you can actually say, let me archive these ones. And you can also archive the records of all employees in terms of the medicals and so forth. So because those are most critical information that is required by the employer during the exit or the resignation of employees. You have, on a construction site, you can have your safety reps. You've got safety committees that are involved, and then you've also got the involvement of the construction managers. It's quite important as well, because as we see these people as a professional team that is trying to bring or to deal with the challenges of safety within this particular construction site, because I don't believe that anyone within the professional team will want to have an incident taking place. So anyone who actually is involved in the professional team can actually can play that particular role. Normally, we don't have a planning requirements per se, but these are planning requirements like any other operations that one can engage with. So you start obviously by looking at what type of working rights are we talking about, or what is the scope of work that we'll be doing. And then we start planning there. Moving forward, you will then do your sort of like your baseline risk assessment to say, for this kind or for this type of scope of work, these might be the hazards that will be involved with, during the processes or during the construction phase. So by so doing, you are sort of like putting planning in place, or putting other aspects in place, so that when the activity starts, you know exactly what you need to do. Ideally, you need to have a supervisor to each and every stages, and that particular supervisor should be competent in working rights. They should know exactly what they are doing. So these issues of ad hoc basis, supervisor on an ad hoc basis, does not work, because an incident can happen within a split of a second. So it is ideal that you have a supervisor in each and every stages, so that you can able to assist and guide. Because oftentimes employees tend to rush what they are doing because of the pressure, or because of the working environment where they are in, the comfortability. Because when you are working rights, at some point you are not comfortable enough compared to when you are working on a ground level. So therefore you will then need to have a supervisor who will able to assist you, who will able to, should anything fall from heights, you can able to, the supervisor can able to assist you and give back whatever that actually has fallen. So it is very critical that you have a supervisor each and every stages. Yes, indeed, you need to have an emergency preparedness plan, so that you can able to say, should it happen that during emergency, this is what needs to be done. So in other words, each and every employee must be aware or well conversant with that particular plan. And obviously, in terms of your siren, for example, if should it happen that the working environment is noisy, people should able to know that if this siren goes off, what is it that we need to do? So those are kind of emergency preparedness, that plan that you need to have in place. And obviously you need to liaise with the local emergency services, so that you know exactly that should anyone get injured, where to go. Yeah. You need to have a person who is trained in first aider, who was declared competent by a competent service provider, so that should anything happen, let's say somebody fall from heights, then the first thing that you need to do, you need to get a first aider before probably it goes to the hospital, to the nearest hospital or clinic. So it is very critical that you have everything in place. I wouldn't able to give you the stats or the numbers, but it is a concern in the whole country. People are, as I've indicated earlier on during the masterclass, to say working rights is a very high risk activity, and oftentimes we tend that particular activity tend to be neglected. But when you compare to the global trend, we are actually coming closer to that, because it's very high. You must remember that you've got quite a number of private houses that we normally build. And oftentimes those small companies or businesses or individuals, they don't have proper scaffoldings, and they are not competent to erect any scaffoldings. So oftentimes fall from heights happen during that period, and some of them they are not reported, and some they are reported. But in terms of the level of working rights, it is actually alarming, and it's a concern. Improvement that I would like to see is that when we start seeing the authority going into all these private, sectors, and start, engaging or start training, because I think at some point policing or finding people, it's not a solution. but we need to start engaging. We need to sort of like conducting road shows in terms of working rights. And by so doing that, we are basically conscientizing and we're also empowering those people who are not exposed in kind of environment. I will definitely like to see the kind of incidences going down, let's say by 10%, because I know that in 3 years' time, because in a year it will take a lot of budget to do that. Because I mean, when you look in terms of the built environment, the way it's booming nowadays, the way it's each and every corner there is construction that is taking place, and you eventually need to sort of like give it a time and measure, and then so that you can able to compare to say the previous 3 years this was the condition or this was the status. Currently, this is where we are sitting. Yeah, so that's basically what I would like to see. As much as we also tried to deal with the issues of medical fitness for employees being appointed in the working rights environment. Because you must remember that when an individual is looking for employment, they normally don't declare their medicals. They will tell you that they are fit to work at heights. They are not afraid in working at heights. And oftentimes you will find that people who got epileptics are also being appointed and to work at heights. And that's the problem, because should anything happens while the person is working at heights, when the epileptics kicks in, and chances are that the person might die. And I don't think that any person or any organization will want to have such situation where a person falls from heights because of not declaring his medical conditions. And unfortunately, even when you look in terms of medical conditions, there is nowhere where they detect whether you are fit to work at heights or not. The only thing that they can detect is your high blood pressure and so forth and so forth. But in terms of the fitness at working at heights, it becomes a problem, because we rely on an individual to declare and to be honest about his medical condition. That's the problem. And at this point in time, people are looking for employment and they will lie about their conditions.